All right, so we're in the home stretch, guys. So what we thought we would do is just do a teeny bit of reminding of why we all came to Iceland. So what were the objectives here? Pardon me? The weather, yes, yeah, absolutely. So remember the objectives of our meeting were to identify scientifically meritorious cross-cohort research projects and international collaborators willing to organize and participate in them. Maybe we didn't get to maybe if you could close the door in the back there. Maybe we didn't quite get to the identifying international collaborators willing to organize and participate in them, although I think we identified some who are. And we certainly came up with a number of cross-cohort research projects. We can debate the scientific merit of them, but I think there weren't any that people said, oh, this is a terrible idea, let's not go forward with it at all. So I think we did that. And then develop an IHCC scientific agenda to bring forward to funding bodies. And I think we're well on our way to doing that, and that's something that we'll be feeding back to you guys to get your input on when we've proposed something. We also learned that there seems to be considerable interest at this meeting that we didn't hear at the first meeting in becoming a more formal consortium with a charter and guiding principles and other kinds of things that go along with that. Maybe even a membership, what does it take to be a member and what does it mean to be a member? We discussed maybe having a second request for ideas that would be on a somewhat more relaxed time frame, and also something that could focus really on projects that could only be done by an IHCC-like entity. So not something that's just done across a couple of cohorts, but across almost all of them. And then we also heard we want to ensure that all cohorts benefit by enhancements, for example, such as providing genomic sequence data, although that's not the only way that one can enhance these cohorts. But we could use other ideas as to what would be specifically enhancing and empowering for the various cohorts to be able to do. So let me stop there for a moment and just ask, are there other ideas in terms of enhancements that we should be thinking about and kind of keep front of mind? We heard about metabolomics and transcriptomics and proteomics in that. Nothing is leaping to mind. Well, one of the things that was suggested was enabling better linkage of environmental data, for example. There are many governments gather a lot of information on environments that isn't always available to cohort researchers. That might be something that might be feasible to move forward. Okay. If not, then, and we'll make these slides available on the, I guess the Google Drive, is that where things live here, or somehow? Okay, so we'll make them available somehow. We also heard about some interesting non-genetic research ideas. The multiple morbidity was one that probably can't be done terribly well in any single cohort. Reviewing the exposome as a broad entity or rare exposures, looking at the timing of exposures, particularly in the developmental cycle of the human being. Social determinants of health, the impact of climate change, which maybe we'll wait until 2020 in the US to address that. Learning to impute exposures from genomic or other data is a really cool idea. I mean, the fact that Nancy Cox suggested it and not I suggested it makes me think that it's actually feasible to do, although I have no idea how you would do it, but she does, which is great. And then harmonization of non-genetic data were also ideas that folks had. So other non-genetic, and again, this doesn't have to be the be-all and end-all. As you have other ideas for things that we can do, we can add to this. But we wanted to come up with, capture some of them at least. So then where do we go from here? We will develop and distribute a summary of this meeting. We will aim for a couple of weeks, but recognize that in that couple of weeks, we're also trying to develop these exemplar proposals and sort of a plan to bring forward to HEROES. And recognize that those would not just be the scientific ideas that were reviewed by Team B, but also the two strategies that Team A came up with in terms of data structure and informatics facilitating efforts, and then the policy team had a number of things that needed to move forward as well. So we'll include all of those ideas. We will send those out to you and ask for a fairly quick turnaround, probably like a week or so, and forgive us for making that a fast turnaround, but it's kind of the nature of the beast. We would also like to move forward with this idea of developing a charter and guiding principles. And so Teji is going to send an email to everyone asking you to respond if you would like to be part of the group that does that. We should probably ask that group also, should there be some more formal sort of sign up and membership process for this group? And right now it's been things that people we could think of and cohorts that we knew of that we would try to include. But there probably should be something a little bit more formal than that, and also getting some commitments from folks. We just didn't want to exclude anybody at this early stage. We heard about the potential for having 2 co-leads to cover the breadth of the globe, since it is challenging with that sun just keeps insisting on setting in certain places of the world at inconvenient times. The potential for having 2 co-leads that would cover that for each of the teams, I think, is a great one, and we'll see if we can find a way to do that. Again, we'll be looking for volunteers who would be willing to be the co-lead from other parts of the world. Jeff?
Yes, I just wanted to perseverate for a second on the inclusion of cohorts that are not currently in the room. So one thing we should do is provide a list of all the cohorts that we know about, because there are some people that are not here today that were on our list, attended the first meeting. There are some groups that have never attended a meeting that are on our list, and then there are those that are not on our list that we really want to know about. So let's send that list out to everybody, and also ask for your knowledge about cohorts that we have unfortunately missed to be part of this, and names and contact information.
Mm-hmm. Great. And then, as I mentioned, do a second solicitation on the second of what we would hope would be several, but at least a second one in the fairly near term on a slower time frame. We wanted to ask people about opportunities for trainees and junior investigators. We would love to have them involved in this process. Jeff made the comment that it would be good for them to understand what team science means, and being part of building a collaboration like this, what that takes. Of course, my concern is that would scare them away and they would run off to industry or some other place. But hopefully there are some of those folks that we could include, and we would look to the cohorts in particular to identify them and suggest them. Probably at this point we could open up more. We had been fairly restrictive in including industry just because we weren't quite sure where we were going from here. But there is a strong interest from a variety of industries that I think we should take advantage of at this point. Maybe we need to have as part of the charter group, and unfortunately the person who suggested that now looks like she's left the room, but because I was going to charge her with also coming up with we should have some guidelines for what industry participation involves, and what they should and shouldn't be able to do or say. We would also like to identify, as Jeff said, what cohorts we're missing, and then aim to have a third meeting of this group somewhere in the world in 2020. That gives us a fairly wide time frame to plan a meeting, including as many additional cohorts as possible, industry participation, and then of course hear the progress of the ongoing projects. So we would expect that the proposals from at least teams A and C, and hopefully some of those that were proposed from team B, especially those that are building on existing efforts, would be moving forward during that time, and we would hear where they are, as well as some other new projects. We had, as part of this meeting, each of the teams selected 2 speakers to come and speak about sort of broad overarching areas. That was in part to get people's ideas flowing in terms of other things that could be done with a large series of cohorts. We may not need to do that at the next meeting. I don't know how valuable people found those to be, and we could talk later or now about whether to include that component as well. And I think that's pretty much as far as we got. Peter, am I missing anything?
I was picking up on that last meeting, on the idea of a meeting, and I think we'd all said we don't want to have a meeting for the sake of having a meeting. So one of the things that we'll be making sure with teams A, B, and C is getting a work plan, making deliverables, all of it contingent on getting support from Hero or some other group. But we actually want to make lots of tangible progress towards some deliverables, and that meeting will be a next stepping stone, as opposed to we'll be meeting to just hear about independent progress. We will have driven, I hope, we will have driven a lot of that progress.
Good point. Yes, Joe.
Could just make a point about the RFIs? And I think someone said during the meeting it was great to have something concrete to sort of think about and work on as a group, and hopefully it's added value to those proposals that have been talked about here. I'm sure it's a great disappointment to some people in the room that MRC and Welcome haven't come with a checkbook for these things. But I just wouldn't want people, if there are good ideas emerging and potential to take these things forward, I wouldn't want people to think that they can't use existing funding mechanisms, which I think Mary referred to, for potentially taking some of these ideas forward. We don't have to just wait kind of for this initiative or for 2020 or 2022 or something before these ideas can be taken forward. So I think, you know, just to, if you've had a good discussion, made some contacts, and there's some opportunities here, please don't feel you have to kind of wait, I think, you know, to act on it.
You know, that's an excellent point, Joe, and let me second that. Certainly from the NHGRI, recognize that my director has left. He had to leave because he could only catch this flight because he's on a very tight time frame in terms of trying to get more money for the Institute. But in terms of you know, the NIH as a whole, it is way easier to move through our sort of standard mechanisms than to try to get something set aside. So if there are things, and we can talk with you, and Rongling and I and others can give you advice in terms of, you know, how saleable an idea might be to a given institute or to us. Now, Mary, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I also didn't bring my checkbook. Thank you, Joe, for letting me off the hook. Really, the particular scheme that we have is called a collaborative award, and they're up to 4 million for up to 5 years. So we have, you know, and it's not easy. It's very difficult to get money out of Welcome, but it is possible. And I think the projects that I've heard about and read about in the documentation, quite a lot of them would be suitable for collaborative awards. The only stipulation being that it has to be led by an institution either in a lower middle income country or by the UK, a UK institution. So that is the restriction. But that's a great way of profiling our great LMIC cohorts.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think Genome Canada, I'll put our Canadians on the spot. Genome Canada does have calls periodically for various collaborative projects. I don't know when their next call is, or CIHR. Maybe. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, that's right. But yeah, there are periodic calls like that for collaborative projects. So. Any other points we need to make, Jeff? I was going to give you the last word. You may not have known I was going to give you the last word.
So thank you, everybody. I just wanted to say how much I appreciated, I should say on behalf of our team, all of you traveling a great distance, some of you being quite jet lagged and sticking it out for the last 36 or so hours. A very long day yesterday, fun evening last night, and an incredible interactive discussion, I think, today. One of the things that I always take home from meetings like this is the importance of face-to-face contact. I don't think a lot of the things that were said and the concepts that were realized would have been done over a WebEx or a phone meeting at all. So I really appreciate the candor that we received, the feedback. I think this is paraphrasing something that Rory said. We take the fact that there was critique of the process or some of the things that we may have done getting to this point as a sign of really an investment and engagement by all of you in what we're trying to achieve. So that's really an important realization for us, and we have some new directions as a result. So we're going to look forward with great enthusiasm and excitement bringing this cohort together even more, including other people that are just not in the room today. And the plan that Terry laid out is one that we're going to, you know, initiate right away. And of course, we really want to have your involvement and engagement to the extent that you're able to. And or of your trainees, which I think this would be a fabulous opportunity for them. So thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your evening in Iceland and some touring around if that's what you're going to do. If you're traveling tonight, safe travels home. And mention. Oh, sorry. Yes, my bad. The Seneca meeting is still scheduled for 4:30.
I think.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to accelerate the timeline and start Seneca after a short break of some type, 5 minutes, and you'll expect it to last for an hour and a half. Is that?
If I can just take the chance just to say, the Seneca project is basically funded, an EU project that's funded to do implementation of quite a lot of the, addressing quite a lot of the challenges that have been discussed here. So we want to do stakeholder engagement to really say what is it you need from us, what training we can that needs to be done in terms of cohorts, harmonization, etc. So the discussion we don't think will be an hour and a half. We know everybody's tired after 2 days here. So we'll start in maybe at 3:45, have a quick talk on what is Seneca, and then have interactive discussions on getting back your needs. So probably an hour tops.
All right, so I hope as many of you that are not traveling home immediately can stay for that meeting. And as I started to say, certainly look forward to working with all of you on behalf of our teams. Look forward to working with all of you over the next few months to really bring forward the IHCC. Thank you.